So I'm Dr. Peter Fox with Kingfisher Strike, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about ultra cold weather steelhead gear. So here in Michigan, it gets ridiculously cold in the wintertime. Anybody who fishes here knows that. And I know I'm not alone because I'll go out in the winter and I'll be fishing. It'll be 15 degrees outside and there'll still be other people on the river. And there'll still be people at the holes before me. So I know that a lot of you guys out there do go fishing in this extreme cold weather. And when you do that, there's certain types of gear and there's certain brands that tend to work better than others in that kind of weather. So I'm going to talk mostly about reels today because those are the areas where I find you get the biggest issues with your steelhead fishing gear. Most of the rods work just fine. There might be some issues with the types of guides that are on them, things like that. I'll cover that a small amount, but I'm primarily going to cover different reels and different brands and the positives and negative experiences that I've had with them. So first I'm going to cover Duckett, this type of reel. I've been using this reel for a couple of years. I absolutely love it in the summertime, especially for bass fishing. It's a phenomenal bass reel. As it gets colder, sometimes I'll find that the roller bearing will freeze and then the anti-reverse will also stop to work. So I don't use this reel very often for my salmon steelhead fishing. In the warmer weather for salmon and steelhead, I actually prefer to use my saltwater Penn Spinfisher 4 because the frame is just an absolute beast. It doesn't flex a lot. I can use big crankbaits with it, big spinners, and it can handle that very well. The bearings are really solid and it has a really strong, smooth drag. So I can use lighter line, heavier line on it, and the drag is it's very incremental. It's predictable, it's smooth. And this is just an absolute dream in warmer weather for salmon and steelhead. But in colder weather, I was out fishing this reel last week, high 20s, low 30s, and the anti-reverse stopped working. So it's just the tolerances on the bearing. It must freeze up in such a way as that it doesn't stop the back spool anymore. And I can't imagine how bummed out I would be if I'm fishing in 14-degree weather with crankbaits for a big brown and I go to set the hook and then have my reel backspin on me. So the reel that I have been using and I found consistently over the years, the Diawa reels work phenomenally well in the wintertime in the cold weather. So I have a Legalis, which I just purchased, and I have a smaller Regal. So the Regal I've been fishing for a number of years, but it's a 1500 size reel, kind of small for a lot of the types of fishing that I do. So I fished that reel trouble-free. I still have it. I use it in specific situations, but I wanted something a little bit bigger for fishing bigger gear. And this reel, the anti-reverse works great in cold weather. The drag works great in cold weather. The roller bearing works great in cold weather. It's strong enough to handle fighting big fish. And it's also one of the cheaper reels out of the three by a significant amount. And especially if you go with the Regal over the Legalis, which is very similar to this one. It's just a little bit different, but a lower price point. The only reason I went with the Legalis is in case I bring it down to salt water for the summertime. So phenomenal spinning reel. And then if you want to go a little bit more trouble-free, some of the things that you can do is you can switch over to either fly fishing or centerpin fishing. So with fly fishing, I've never had a fly reel that didn't function well in cold weather. This is a Fly Project trout spay reel. It works great. So do all my other fly reels. They just work very, very well in cold weather. You don't have issues with them. It's probably because the designs on them are so simple, there's not a whole lot to them. Center pins is very similar to that. I have a Colville and an Okuma Aventa. In ultra cold weather, I will tend to go with the Aventa for the pure reason that it's fully ported. The last year I was fishing this reel in the wintertime and I love this reel. It's my favorite center pin to fight fish on. I'm absolutely amazed at how well this reel can help you to fight fish, the way that the feel is as you're using your fingers for the drag. It's my favorite reel for fighting fish on. However, last year I was steelhead fishing and I accidentally dumped it and water got behind the back plate, and because it's not ported, froze up, and then here I am. I drove 3.5 hours to get to a tailwater and can't fish. So I fortunately did have the fly reel with me, so I was able to pull that rod out and fish. But had I just brought this center pin reel, it would have been end of the day for me because this reel is pretty hard to take apart and fix all that up. So in ultra cold weather where I'm concerned that I might dunk the reel, I just go with something fully ported. If the Colville is fully ported, good to go on that too. It's just, that's the thing, is having that drainage there allows that water to drip out before the reel actually freezes up on you. As far as lines go, fly reels, you're going to use fly line. Center pins, pretty much everybody uses some sort of monofilament, nice and heavy, thick monofilament, just for the strength so you're not breaking off floats. No big deal there. For spinning reels, you have a choice though. You can go monofilament, fluorocarbon, or braid. I am starting to lean more towards going with braid, even in the wintertime, and just finding some sort of treatment for it, because in situations where I'm using lighter crankbaits, which I'm using a lot more of lately, what I find is that the monofilaments, they either tend to not be strong enough for the diameter and I break fish off, or they're like ultra green, which I absolutely love ultra green as a line, especially for bottom bouncing as a main line. It just, in the super cold weather, it gets stiff. I love it as a main line for fishing crankbaits and spoons and things like that when it's a little bit warmer out, like above 35 degrees. But once it gets really cold out, this line just gets really stiff and it's harder to cast, and it just doesn't behave the same way in very cold weather as it does in warmer weather. And so for fishing things like crankbaits, rapalas, where they're smaller and the way that the lure moves makes a big difference, I prefer to go with like a 10-pound braid that has some sort of treatment on it to keep it from freezing up. And regardless, whichever of these reels you're using, you're going to have to bust the ice out of the tips of the guides anyway. If you use treatment on the guides, that can be helpful. I've tried various different line sprays. I've tried beeswax, all these different things. Just some of those commercial sprays that are available, they help out. Nothing's perfect. It's just the nature of it. The colder it gets, the more difficulty you're going to have with your gear. But going with the right brands that work well in those types of weather, I just can't say enough about Diawa as a cold weather reel. I have had zero issues with them in cold weather. So that's my recommendation, unless you're going to go with either fly fishing or centerpin fishing. So I hope that helps anybody who's going out there and looking to get out for cold weather steelhead fishing. I'm Dr. Fox with Kingfisher Strike.